Hey guys, so first tier list of the new season is finally here. We're focusing on the best champions to climb solo queue again now that ranked is actually going to mean something and you want that LP. There are a lot of good champions or keystone builds out there right now that you could play, but these are performing the best in 8.1. So let's get started with AD carry first. There has been quite a big shakeup with AD carries now moving massively to the mid game and kind of team fight style again that we had at the end of season 7, not like preseason. Poke is falling off massively, aggressive lanes are falling off as well. We're kind of sadly back to an AFK farm it up lane. Relic Shield and Overheal are responsible for that. It's much more gold, a much safer mid game with the huge shields as well, and Vayne is the #1 with this, the best with this. We're strong anyway and made stronger by this meta. Vayne's weakest phase is lane phase, and in preseason there were loads of poke. Now poke has been nerfed though, so basically the one thing that could stop her now has been nerfed and it doesn't matter anymore. When you take away the one thing that was able to keep a champion down and actually kind of counter her, you're gonna have a few issues. In my opinion, Vayne is worth a ban at the moment. Once she gets a team fight, she is insanely strong. She can take care of herself. She has a good mix of burst damage with Shiv for squishy champions and sustained damage as well. Vayne is kind of a tier of her own, but moving away from that, Tristana is a slightly more aggressive version of Vayne and much safer. Much safer though, and easier to play as well. You have your jump, your knockback, better range at the same time. This is a really big thing for AD carries. She has the second least deaths on average per game for ADs. That comes with being able to fight more in lane. You have your explosion damage and jump, which makes you way more deadly, and you can follow up your support as well. Your damage dealt is actually not that great. You have a short amount of uptime with your Q where you pump out good damage and kind of some downtime after that. It's very easy to farm with Tristana though with her E, which helps you get more gold, and gold is really important for an AD carry. You're probably going to get more than you would on others, and that actually will help even if you don't realize it. Xayah is the dark horse of this patch and massively underrated at the moment. I think really good with this more kind of scaling overheal meta that we have again at the moment. Like Tristana, actually has some good damage and setup in the lane phase, so she can fight, which is really good, but she's also very safe. In the top 5 for least deaths on average, got to be mostly due to her ultimate, honestly. I think feathers as well are a lot of AoE damage, so you do more than you even mean to in fights. You attack the person in front of you, but you're hitting the ones behind as well. It's kind of a bit more of a safe pick or one to help your team do work as well. A lot of it's focused on your roots and stuff like surviving and your AoE damage rather than nuking down people like one person just like a Vayne. I do want to mention quickly Kog'Maw. He also fits in this meta very well, and with protection supports coming back, this covers up his biggest weakness. So if you play with a Janna, for example, it makes his life a lot easier and he becomes really, really strong. Moving into the mid lane, Malzahar is still a solo queue monster at the moment, and his early to mid game impact can kind of just win games, and that is what a lot of your placement games and early season games is going to be focused around. Untitled Spellbook and Aerie are both really good at the moment. Aerie is a bit more damage, obviously, but Untitled Spellbook is more utility, and I do think Spellbook for solo queue is really good. Firstly, you have a lower flash cooldown, right, which means you can get out of dodge if you make a mistake, which you probably will do in these games. They're a bit chaotic and stuff, but you can also flash to use your ultimate and set things up that way. You're then also going to be swapping your summoners for team fights to make your life easier. So like TP to lane with, right? It doesn't matter if you mess up and have to base because you can TP back to lane. You can also TP to other lanes to snowball that way. Heal and ghost though for team fights to make you have more impact and stay safer there afterwards as well. Again, you actually farm like a monster, and having more gold on average for a solo queue game will help you out a lot, especially as a mid laner. Malzahar is kind of a safe pick for mid lane, honestly. Katarina, though, is the ham solo queue risk carry pick, I think. Better this patch than before, but you kind of have to understand why if you're going to hard carry a game. The obvious side is that she has good damage, her burst as well. Her roaming is also solid, and that helps out a ton. The thing is, to win a game with Katarina and actually use her like to justify being on the tier list, you kind of have to snowball and play for your lane phase and get ahead. Gunblade makes that kind of easy. Triple Pen after that, Leandry's Sword Boots and Void Staff. That's an AD carry's worst nightmare. You will shred them. You have to remember as well, you are also strongest when AD carries and supports and stuff are powering up. They are really weak with the shield start in the early game. That is when you're really strong, so it's kind of perfect. We're going to split the third spot into two different ones. There are so many good mid laners right now. We are going to start with Xerath, the kind of king of poke, but actually Lux is also doing much better in 8.1 if you want to dust off your elemental skin. It's surprising though that again he kind of follows the same pattern as Katarina. Very strong early game, whereas poke damage means a lot more, where like the extra AP is really going to hurt, the base damage is really going to hurt. It's not a surprise that he is one of the safest mid laners to play with his range though, but also close to the highest damage per game. That is a really sick combo, and you'll have a lot of impact with that. The other one is going to be Brand. The buffs this patch were really solid to him. I think he's actually good mid and support for now. He does even more damage than Xerath this patch, which is pretty ridiculous. Actually, he just has so much percentage damage on his kit now. There's no real way to build against that. Like, obviously in solo queue, we don't really know what defense is. We don't build magic resist. So the jungle role then, the role where you can play most things and win, honestly, kind of comes down to your playstyle, but these ones are just too strong. So Shyvana is kind of, if your team can go even or win their lane, Shyvana will just crush on her own. She only seems to struggle when a team gets really far behind, but even then, she's not terrible, and she can carry. It's more of a mid-game pick than anything else after like 1 to 2 items, especially your Blood Razor and Frozen Mallet. Normally, she just doesn't die that often though, which is kind of weird when she dives in, but partially probably because she farms and she's also very tanky. She's not really ganking that much. You almost see highest gold earning jungler, lets you stay relevant for longer in the lane, which is really good. You farm super fast so you can gank a bit more as well. You're a good counter though to weaker duelist junglers like Graves, Rengar, even Kayn. You find these guys alone, you don't need any skill to beat them. You press your W, you run at them, and you are going to kill them. Shyvana is really strong, but sometimes you're depending on your team a little bit too much. In my opinion, you cannot go wrong with Warwick right now. There are no direct changes, but insane in 8.1 at the moment. This guy absorbs almost the most damage out of any jungler you can play. He is a massive meat shield, and that's really hard to play against when AD carries damage is more ramping and slower to start with. This is also why Warwick is really good early game. He has healing, crowd control, multiple bits of crowd control, damage reduction, and he's just so tanky. Also remember that he is basically a carry jungler's hard counter. He can duel them and win 1v1 with red smite and healing and his damage. He can also win any 2v2 fights if the enemy jungler decides to counter gank, or you do, because he's more tanky. He basically survives for longer and does similar damage. That's why he works so well versus them. Jarvan is very similar to Kayn, Lee Sin, Kha'Zix, kind of that category of champion, just a bit more well-rounded for now. The biggest difference is he brings engage and can actually pick fights to snowball the game after. There's nothing worse than having a lead in solo queue but not really being able to use it properly because you can't engage fights. He's a really good ganking jungler, obviously that's why you pick him, especially a single lane like repeat ganks. It's really good for early season, by the way, to tilt people if you keep coming back to their lane. It's also about the damage though, really high damage with Duskblade, and I honestly think this is kind of his new job now. You are one of the few who can actually delete an AD carry through the shields they have, and especially at 1 to 2 items. Most people go Warrior, Duskblade, Cleaver, GA, like Guardian Angel after that. A ton of AD and burst damage. Your job is to jump in and kill people. It's no surprise that support has changed quite a lot with the AD carries changing. There's a real shift here away from fighting to protecting more. This will probably change next patch, but for now we're back to these. So Janna is the ultimate protection support and even does more damage now with Avery and Spell Thieves, which is pretty disgusting. Safest support you can play, which is no real surprise, means your team survives longer as well because you're still alive during the fight. You also got your disengage, right, versus a lot of aggressive support. So the AD carry damage is lower, as we've said, so she can actually keep people alive a lot easier. Vayne and Kog'Maw especially, though, are really good with Janna. They don't need more damage or setup or anything. They just need to be kept alive, which is exactly what Janna is there for. Taric is just kind of a tank version of Janna. Does a really similar job, but in front of the AD, not from behind, basically. He's only just behind Janna in terms of deaths per game, so actually very safe, even though he is melee. Taric is basically the counter to fighting supports. Like Blitzcrank, Alistar, Leona and stuff, he really shuts them down, like really hard. When they go in on the AD carry, on your AD carry, Taric is going to walk forward, absorb damage, stun, shields, heals, and it's really hard for his AD to die. He can also set up a lot of fights, making him good with a lot more AD carries like Tristana or Xayah, as well as Vayne as well, protecting them. You get to team fights, and he has like a mini sonar ult, stun, team-wide massive ult, and just an overloaded kit. Personally, I love playing with Taric right now, and I think a good one can climb very easily. We're going to split the third spot here into Nami and into Brand after that. Both of these are more aggressive mages that control the lane, but in different ways. Nami is really good at protecting and stuff, but she is not on the same level as a Janna or a Taric or a Lulu. That is why you want to fight a bit more in the lane phase. She does a lot of damage. You have the poke damage before, then crowd control when you actually fight, which AD carries can't really return and deal with, honestly. In mid-game fights, you are more there as a disruptor, like Alistar, actually more than anything else. The brand buffs were obviously very good for him because you don't need to build damage to make use of the percentage damage that they gave to him on his passive, or doubled it on his passive. Landing a 3-spell combo now in lane is almost guaranteed to be a kill. It's pretty nuts. He is not just poke though, he can actually burst, and that is a really key difference between a lot of other damage supports. You can actually fight and win. For the top lane, we have a lot of good options here, but these I think are the best for climbing in 8.1, starting with Nasus. Best by far, easiest champion to play, easiest build to play with Kleptomancy. It's just so good. There are a bunch bunch of things that make him so good for solo queue. So starting with scaling, no worry about getting ahead or anything like that, no risk. You always have a chance to come back in a game, and you're always going to be strong, at least if the game goes long enough. He's very easy as well, which lets you focus on the lane phase and on the game a little bit more, on trading and stuff. You stack your Kleptomancy, you stack your Q, and that's pretty much game over. That's all you have to do. You don't even have to do anything different, like nothing obvious on purpose. You will just get more gold without even trying, and then be stronger and do more. Part of that is because you're very tanky as well. Even without tank items, your ultimate gives you a massive boost. So even if you get ganked, you pick a bad fight, you're unlikely to die. Illaoi is basically like an earlier game version of Nasus, really. She does a serious amount of damage though, like the same level as a poke champion over the game from like mid lane, for example. It's crazy. A lot of that is poke, sure, in lane with tentacles and stuff, but even the burst from her ultimate is absolutely crazy. You have this combo though of Kleptomancy and easy wave clear, which means she earns a lot of gold in the game as well. Especially for like an earlier game bruiser, having more gold is a massive deal, and it actually makes her win a lot more. Once you get to like 30 minutes roughly, you're relying on your team to help you win, but before that, you are the one doing the spanking for sure. Finally, we're going to split this again into carry and a tank style champion, because we're going to start with GP, but not everybody can play Gangplank. Like, I can't play this guy very well, honestly, so I would go for the other one. He's actually one of the best you can play if you are good with him. Big if right there, as we just said. Highest earning champion though for top lane, has this new mid game build, which makes him carry harder in this meta, which is really good. He's also one of the few who can actually dumpster an AD carry from high range without even getting close late game, and no protection support can honestly do anything about that. No relic shield is actually going to help you. Malphite is really the new best tank to play now, even though tanks are not as meta as before. Like, we had Ornn and Maokai before, but scaling AD carries counter tanks, so normally there's no point. Malphite is a bit different and makes their lives a lot harder. First of all, you have your engage, which is always a good thing for solo queue. You have a shield to start a fight, you stack armor, which is important, and an attack speed slow on his E. All of that is hard to play against as an AD carry, and it reduces the AD carry's damage. You don't just absorb it. This is a really big difference here between him and other tanks. He does some decent damage, but he makes the enemy AD carry or just AD champion like Riven or Fiora do less damage and be less likely to be able to carry. So these are the champions performing best in 8.1. There is a quick summary short version in the description if you want to go and read that to see what I said over the video. Good luck with the placement games, and for now, I'll leave you with the robots.